All right, part two to language, lies, and deception. Anyway, I got started in the last video, which I kind of confusingly, which it's always going to be somewhat confusing. Maybe other people could talk about it better, but confusingly demonstrated going through and looking up a few definitions of the word man uh, in multiple dictionaries, Bouvier's, the Bible, blah blah blah. Anyway, and when I got started, I wanted to give some present day examples and also current examples of things of how you are. Most people think they're being lied to when the truth is you're being told the truth. You're just misinterpreting what they say because you don't know how to interpret. You don't know what they're actually saying. You don't know the definitions of their words, the way they use them, and because most, in an official capacity, it's pretty easy to deceive. I was gonna say most words that we use in everyday terms don't always have the same meanings in an official or a lawful context. Now, so not everybody has to tell the truth. In fact, unless you're like, I don't know the terms of when you're like bound to tell the truth. But let's say this. Obviously, you can't if you're, under penalty of perjury and all that stuff, or you do an affirmation. That's you're saying you're telling the truth. If you're confirming that you're telling the truth, and then also another maxim of law. Well, first I want to say, when you have someone like Fauci, or the director of the CDC, or President Trump, or the CEO of Apple, or Google, or whatever, anyone in an executive capacity, and the word I use to describe that is principle, any principle, they're going to have different liabilities for the statements they make than just a random, like a news anchor. I mean, that's such a good way to have the truth be manipulated through news anchors. But anyways, you have a principal making a public statement, and here's the maxim of law you need to remember when principals are making public statements. I guess I should have looked this up, but it's he who accepts liability has credibility. In other words, the inverse of that is if you do not accept liability, you have no credibility. Like, if you don't accept liability for your words, if I say I'm a car mechanic and I go, I'm just the sole business owner. I own my own business. I work on people's cars, and I have a customer, and he comes back to pick his car up, and I say, "Your car is finished, and I fixed your brakes." If he gets in the car and there's no brakes and he crashes, you're liable, right? There's really no way. Okay, let me say that a different way. Yeah, I'll loop that example in. Basically, I was trying to work it out in my head, is that obvious, like, as you progress up the hierarchy of any institution and you get to those principles, it just naturally have liability. Like, if in the car mechanic example, and he said that your brakes were fixed, and then you found out you had no brakes and you crashed, and you went up to him and you said, "Hey, or you took him to court or whatever, and he said, hey man, he said that he fixed the brakes and he didn't. And if the guy was like, well, why would you have believed me? Like, I have no credibility there. Well, he does have credibility because he's a car mechanic, and he already had liability because you contracted with him, but that's a different point. But anyways, just as they progress, they attain. I mean, there may be other mechanisms, but I at present time, I cannot articulate it exactly. Anyways, principles. The owner of a company, he says something, that his company will do X, Y, and Z, and he's liable for that, right? Because he's the principal of the company. And anyway, that's going a lot deeper than basically, if you're not accepting my point is, if you're not accepting liability, your statements mean nothing. He who accepts liability has credibility. He who does not accept liability has none. So I guess they take it to the court example is if you're in court and if you're going to claim to be credible, then you're claiming to be liable. Right. That's really what I should have said. If you're claiming to be credible, you're claiming to be liable. Or you have to be liable. If you're claiming credibility, you are liable. So by virtue of their title as a principal, they are liable, because why would they have a principal that's not credible? I mean, that's just by nature of what the title is. And there may be other mechanisms. I'm sure people will. Anyway, let's get back to the point. So a person like Fauci, this is the best example, right? And if I find the source, or if I find the video clip, if I have time to go looking for it, if not, I'm sure people have seen it, and we can just go for days in finding this same example if you're paying attention to where liability is. But the great example, as I heard on a news interview, Fauci said, well, I wear, what did he say? He said, well, I wear a mask because I believe it'll be effective, and such and such, to something to that effect. Something to the effect of, I wear it because I believe it'll make a difference. Don't quote me, it's not exact, but I'll give you an exact example right after this. But anyways, so basically what you're saying there is somebody who has liability, and is claiming to be credible. Obviously, you put them on the news claiming to be credible. So they have liability for what they say, as in, same with the mask making companies. If they say this cures you or protects you from a disease, then there you go. So he's claiming to be credible, or we're assuming that he's credible. Then what did he actually say? He said, I believe they will be effective or help, which basically says, that's not accepting any liability, because he didn't say they will be at, penalty of at his own liability. He says, I believe. So that's really, it's not accepting any liability for the mask. And to be honest, when I was looking around for these things, no one, they make recommendations. That's not accepting liability. It's just saying, it might help, it might not. I mean, we say be on the safe side, do it. But look for people who are making claims who have liability. Look for people who have liability, who are making claims that this makes any real difference, that it helps prevent disease, which they won't. Nobody's making those claims. Nobody who has liability. Random people talking on social media says, oh yeah, look at all these studies, and blah blah blah, it helps. but they're not accepting liability for when it doesn't. But these principles on TV, they are. That's why they're not saying it. So let's get to this that I wanted to show. Well, here we go. So, 2 days ago, so-and-so, what is it, Robert Redfield or something, is not a movie star, older movie star, blah, 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 I'm not going to connect, but I am going to comment as this, so this is pretty heavy. He said, I'm not going to comment directly about the president, but I am going to comment as the CDC director so as the CDC director, somebody who holds a principal position, holds liability, and he's claiming to be credible. So he has to be really careful what he says here. These face masks are the most important powerful public health tool we have, Redfield replied. So what did he say there? He said that these face masks are the most important, powerful public health tool we have. Well, it doesn't say anything. I mean, you can pull some sort of meaning out of that, but I contend that regular folks reading these reports and listening to the news have no idea what public health actually means. That is, we could talk for 2 hours about that, but public health, to me, what that means is public, as in the realm of the public, where they are the public, which is controlled wholly by the United States, which is, corporation. Public health, so it means the health of their public corporation. It doesn't give a crap about living men and women, people. It says nothing about, like, we want, and I don't even want to dive into the word health, but he's not saying he wants, the goal is to have a public tool to keep you, viewer, the one watching, healthy and safe, or whatever. Also don't like the word safe. Anyway, let's move on. So basically, guy with liability says nothing. Or he says something bad, depending on how you want to look at it. Guy with liability, next part of the quote. They, as in masks, they are our best defense. He added, I might even go so far as to say this face mask is more guaranteed to protect me against COVID, whatever, than when I take the COVID's vaccine, because the immunogenicity may, I'm not gonna see, and the medical words are gonna have a different meaning altogether too. Also, not the same as everyday conversation. Anyways, immunogenicity, I guess it just means, through context, means you're not gonna have the immune response that they want you to have, which would theoretically prevent something, which I'm not really going to dive into that, but whatever. I mean, I don't think disease is communicable the way they tell you it is. Anyway, because blah, 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 maybe 70%, and if I don't get an immune response, the vaccine is not going to protect me. The face mask will. So what he said right here is that it's more guaranteed to protect, and then his qualifier here, and if I don't get an immune response, that means, so he's saying, well, if the vaccine doesn't work the way we want it, so it doesn't work at all, so it's 0%, then the mask is more guaranteed. He never said the vaccine's going to do anything. Never said the masks will do anything. He just said if the vaccine doesn't do anything, then the mask is guaranteed to maybe do the same amount or better. That's the extent of that. I just really wanted to point out how you really need to listen to what people say and the effect. Again, like when someone says, I wear a mask because I believe it will be effective, they're saying, in my current position where I hold liability, I am not telling you that masks work. As in, they don't work. If they worked, why wouldn't they would take liability? And I'm sure scientific studies and their conclusions have slightly different assumptions and presumptions and liabilities and all that. I'm not going to get into that. It's just the point was when you pay attention to what they're saying or what they're saying by not saying, what they're omitting, admitting, or anything else, implied, presumed, context. I mean, this is just, you already know that the politicians are hollow puppets. However, they still hold liability, if not them, the corporation behind them. So they need to be careful about what they say, and they're also trying to deceive. But in order to deceive, you need to wrap the lie in truth energetically. So the truth's there. You just need to know how to see it. And I think we'll leave it there. This is Ammon. Videos 3 and 4. Getting used to it. Over and out. Bye.